Buck, I wanted to start. I got to give President Trump a tremendous amount of credit because he is actually doing what has been discussed for decades, as long as I can remember. You correct me if I'm wrong. You've been in the conservative side of media for longer than I have. But as long as I've been doing media, Republicans have been teeing off at NPR and saying, why do our tax dollars go to support left-wing propaganda in any way? And nothing ever happens. Well, last night, Trump decided to finally sign a executive order that will end all of the money that NPR gets. And I think this is pretty substantial. And I want to play several different aspects of this, but I think you'll sign off the top here on this, Buck. Everyone should have to compete in the marketplace. Our show competes directly with NPR, probably in hundreds of markets across the country for sure. The federal government is not giving us millions of dollars to aid in our business in any way. We've got to go out and our company has to sell ads. We have to compete for ratings in 500, I think it's 55 different markets in all 50 states across the country. And we don't get any built-in advantage. And that's how it should be. Everyone in media should compete, and the shows that are the most popular should have the most success. I've never understood why the government should be giving money to NPR for any reason, regardless of what their politics were. But given how left-wing their politics are, the idea that Republicans basically should be funding opposition research with taxpayer dollars is crazy. And I wanted to play several different cuts of the crazy leader of NPR. The crew did a good job pulling all of this. First, she says the number one challenge that she faces, Buck, this is Catherine Mayer, says the number one challenge she faces is the First Amendment. This is not an ideal thing for someone in media to be saying. This is the head of NPR, cut 11, back in 2021.
The number one challenge here that we see and is, of course, the First Amendment in the United States is a fairly robust protection of rights. And that is a protection of rights both for platforms, which I actually think is very important, that platforms have those rights to be able to regulate what kind of content they want on their sites. But it also means that it is a little bit tricky to really address some of the real challenges of where does bad information come from and sort of the influence peddlers who have made a real market economy around it.
Okay, so the First Amendment is, quote, the number one challenge that she faces. Here is another cut. This is from June 22nd, 2021 as well. At this time, she was the CEO of basically Wikipedia, I believe, correct? All of the different Wikipedia-related entities. And have I told you this, Buck? I don't know if you've ever gone into your Wikipedia page. Laura, my wife, went into my Wikipedia page and tried to edit it because she was upset at there being a bunch of things that she knew to be inaccurate, having been married to me for 21 years. She tried to make edits to my Wikipedia page, and they were rejected because they said that she did not have adequate knowledge to be able to change the Wikipedia page. And I think
did they really erase that you are universally considered the handsomest sports talk radio host out there? Did they really get rid of that, Clay?
Let me tell you something, Buck. I'm not sure that Laura's adjustments on my Wikipedia page would have actually even been very positive, but they would have been accurate. Because I think she has a pretty good sense of the last 20 years or so of my career. But I did think that was very funny because somehow she ended up on the page and she was telling me this a while back. She said, I want to, there's lots of stuff that's totally wrong on there. And she was like, and I went in and tried to fix it. And they told me that the edit, that my edits weren't allowed to be accepted because I didn't have the requisite Wikipedia street cred or whatever to be considered an expert on this. So I did think that was very funny. But here she is saying, that she took a very active approach to disinformation and wanted to make sure of all of her censorship moves. Again, cut 10.
we took a very active approach to disinformation and misinformation coming into not just the last election, but also looking at how we supported our editing community in an unprecedented moment where we were not only dealing with a global pandemic, we were dealing with a novel virus, which by definition means we knew nothing about it in real time. And we're trying to figure it out as the pandemic went along. And so we really set up in response to both the pandemic, but also in response to the upcoming US election and as a model for future elections outside of the US, including a number that are happening this year. The model was around how do we create sort of a clearinghouse of information that brings the institution of the Wikimedia Foundation with the editing community in order to be able to identify threats early on through conversations with government, of course, as well as other platform operators to understand sort of what the landscape looks like.
Okay, so that continues, and then I want to play one more cut just to kind of let everybody out there understand, because a lot of people may not pay attention to NPR, and I do think this is significant. She says, truth is a distraction from finding consensus. This is cut 9.
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth. They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
Buck, what do you think? This NPR CEO is awful. They just sent us the links of all the stories, which are clearly biased. Trump is finally doing the right thing here, right? And it's taken decades for it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Clay, I don't think it really is going to change very much. I mean, one, this woman is no longer the CEO. Two, the funding level that they get from the government is not huge. I don't even know what it is. But I do think it's funny that they complain about the cut to the funding level, right? They'll say in the same breath, well, most of the funding for NPR and PBS doesn't actually come from the government. Okay, well, then why do you get it at all? So there's a principle that's at stake here of why would any media entity that is it's clearly ideological, start with that, but why would it get state funds or government funds? It makes no sense. There's no argument for it to continue, so why should it continue? The only argument is that people on the left like it, and they want to have a rigged game, a rigged system. But yeah, this woman, these sound bites, just to be clear, these were older, and she was pretty unanimously voted off the island of more senior media executive jobs because saying that the First Amendment is an impediment to your information operation, to the PSYOP that you're running, is not something that is generally going to be well received by a majority of the American public, I would hope, I would think. But yeah, Trump says that he's pulling this. I'm not sure that he'll be able to. This is the problem we keep running into once again, congressionally authorized funding versus executive branch administering of different pools of cash that have gone to all these different agencies. So we'll see. They're challenging this, Clay, obviously right away. And they're saying that our money comes from Congress, not from the president, yada, yada. But it's the right move. It's the right thing to do. I'm glad that he's doing it. It makes the libs cry, which is always fun.
That woman is the president CEO of NPR. At the time, she was head of Wikipedia. So Catherine Mayer, all that
she
audio.
She still is?
Oh, yes. She's still the president.
Oh my gosh! I'm sorry. I thought she got fired.
No. She got elevated to that job in March of 2024, which was when all this audio from Wikipedia went viral.
I'm sorry. I sent in the clip of her this morning, the old clip of her. I thought she had been like reassigned out of the role. I didn't realize she got elevated. That's insane.
She is the president and CEO of NPR. All that. Now, she was not at the time that we played that audio. She was at Wikipedia, but she got elevated after that to head of NPR.
That is wild.
Are raising, and I saw your tweet about this, and I think we should hammer this home. If it is truly not a significant form of revenue for them, taxpayer dollars, why do they fight so hard to keep it? To your point. I mean, if we lost 2% of the revenue on this show because somebody was affiliated with the show that shouldn't have been, and you and I came on and we were beating the drums and screaming about how we needed to keep the 2%, I think a lot of you would say this is very strange. What's interesting, Buck, is the way that it is crafted. Direct NPR money is not very substantial, but I think they're backdooring substantial dollars through local NPR affiliates such that their budget would be severely constrained without this money, because otherwise, why are they squealing about it so much?
Right. And why give the right a talking point that is correct? It's not just something we say, it's the truth, which is that they shouldn't be getting this money, because if they are media entities that can compete in a fair marketplace, there's no reason for this. That's stunning that woman. I remember we were playing those clips a while ago. I'm actually in shock. I don't know why. I thought that they had moved her somewhere else. So thank you for correcting that.
You would think that given that she is politically radioactive and they are now in the Trump era, that maybe it would make sense to have a new president and CEO. But no, she is still there, and she is still taking our taxpayer dollars, and they are suing along with the Corporation of Public Broadcasting to say that they must have all these dollars and that Trump does not have the authority to rescind them in any way.
Well, I also think that I think you're right that there's more money there's more ways that they get money from the public than they let on, because otherwise, why have this vulnerability out there that allows us to constantly bash them? Although I think we've been bashing them for so long without consequence that maybe they don't care at some level. But I think that it's going to be interesting to see how this actually goes. They like the idea of government funding something like NPR. They want to keep this, I think, at some level, because they want the precedent to be there that this is something the government does. The government has a role in information operations, which is what this is. NPR is an information operation. And you can take that in a very kind of bland way. You can take it in the more military info ops or psyop sense. I mean, they are running political programming to the American people under the guise of it being a free and fair marketplace of ideas-based entity, and it clearly is a rigged system. I mean, and if they don't want it to be called a rigged system anymore, then stop rigging the system.
And they're competing directly with us, which is why, I mean, I think on a larger, just standing on precedent, standing on principle perspective, it makes sense. But also, if you're listening to this program, the government's not giving us tens of millions of dollars. And so if that's not occurring here, we should have an open marketplace where people compete fairly, not where you've got a rigged game. Look, speaking of competing fairly, there are better healthcare plan choices than Obamacare. That's not going to surprise a lot of you. But how affordable are they? You'd be surprised how affordable Ease for Everyone is. Ease for Everyone costs as low as $262 per month. You get free unlimited prescriptions with 93% of all drugs covered, available at no extra cost, including insulin. Huge savings on brand names, free unlimited virtual primary care, urgent care with just a $30 copay. You get generous cashback reimbursements, doctor office visits, emergency room visits, ambulance transportation. If the Obama administration hadn't permanently tarnished the term, the Affordable Care Act, one could make the argument this plan, Ease for Everyone, actually is affordable. Replace your overpriced plan, Obamacare, with Ease for Everyone, the only group plan any adult in the U.S. is eligible to join. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Clay. That's Ease, spelled E-A-S-E, Ease for F-O-R everyone.com/Clay. You can also find the info at the clayandbuck.com sponsor page, paid for by Affordable Benefit Choices.